The media reports on South Korea's new $1.29 billion electronic warfare aircraft as a show of strength. This is a deliberate misreading of the strategic environment. An adversary does not fear an asset that costs billions to deploy. They view it as a high-value, concentrated liability. The public fixation on kinetic platforms, on missiles and jets, is the principal distraction. The true battlefield is not the sky. It is the systemic architecture that underpins the state. As cybersecurity leadership confirms, the primary vector for geopolitical conflict has shifted to attacks against critical national infrastructure. The objective, validated by CSIS analysis, is not military degradation, but systemic collapse. The target is a nation's solvency. The next global conflict will not begin with a launch siren. It will begin with silence. A sudden, catastrophic disconnection. RUSI reports confirm the tactical pivot to two asymmetric vectors, severing the undersea fiber optic cables that carry global data and the blinding of satellite constellations. This is the silent vector. This protocol creates the blind Leviathan, a nation-state possessing immense conventional power, rendered operationally inert. Its billion-dollar aircraft are grounded, not by enemy fire, but by a lack of data. Its financial markets freeze, not from a crash, but from an inability to communicate. Its military becomes a muscle without a nervous system. This is not warfare. It is systemic paralysis. The pivot to asymmetric warfare is not a strategic choice. It is a symptom of a solvency crisis. Analysts at CSIS frame the conflict in Ukraine not as a projection of strength, but as a kinetic audit of Russia's systemic failure. Faced with terminal domestic liabilities and an unpopular mandate, the state's survival protocol shifts. It must export its crisis, converting internal weakness into external aggression. When the ledger shows insolvency, the only remaining asset is violence. The mathematics are irrefutable. Symmetric military parity is now a liability reserved for the solvent. South Korea's new electronic warfare aircraft carries a price tag of $1.29 billion. This is the kinetic cost for a single platform, designed to counter a peer adversary. For a state hemorrhaging capital and political legitimacy, this is an impossible sum. The blueprint for conventional conflict is a blueprint for national bankruptcy. Weakness forces the pivot. A state facing a solvency crisis cannot afford the billion-dollar jet, so it finds a new vector. It weaponizes fragility. The U.S. State Department's Level 3 advisory for Bangladesh is not a travel warning. It is a data point mapping systemic vulnerability. These fragile states become liabilities on the global chessboard, proxy battlegrounds where a rival can be destabilized for fractions of the kinetic cost. This logic leads to the true center of gravity, a nation's critical national infrastructure. As geopolitical cyber attacks become the primary offensive tool, the objective is no longer battlefield victory, but systemic degradation. The goal is to cripple the economic and social OS of a target nation. For an actor already in a state of solvency crisis, attacking the solvency of its adversary is the only rational move. This is not malice. It is a function of economic desperation. The blueprint for national bankruptcy is now public. The core calculation of warfare, lethality per dollar, has inverted. The Royal United Services Institute, RUSI, quantifies the new economic reality with brutal simplicity. A $5 million main battle tank can now be neutralized by a $500 commercial drone. This is not a balanced fight. It is fiscal attrition. This is the democratization of violence. The capacity for high-impact kinetic strikes, once the exclusive domain of nation-states, is now accessible to non-state actors and second-tier powers for the price of consumer electronics. Every dollar a state spends on conventional superiority becomes a liability, a high-value target for a low-cost vector. This creates a strategic incentive to bleed a superior adversary not on the battlefield, but on their balance sheet. The response from legacy powers is a systemic error, escalating the kinetic cost. South Korea's commitment of $1 to $129 billion for a single class of electronic warfare aircraft is the terminal stage of this logic. They are building a billion-dollar shield to defend against a $1,000 sword. The math does not and will not work. The adversary is not attacking the aircraft. They are attacking the solvency of the state that must pay for it. The battlefield is no longer a physical location. It is a condition. The next global conflict will not be declared. Its opening stages are being beta tested now in designated gray zones. These are not the cause of instability. They are the proxy laboratories. Conventional deterrence is an economic trap. South Korea just committed $1.29 billion to a single electronic warfare aircraft. This is the kinetic cost of parity. It is a mathematical certainty that this model is unsustainable. The adversary's blueprint bypasses this liability. They will not engage in a dollar-for-dollar arms race. Instead, they weaponize fragility. The U.S. State Department's Level 3 travel advisory for Bangladesh is not a security footnote. It is a data point. CSIS reports confirm such states are prime vectors for asymmetric attacks. These zones serve as staging grounds for the true assault, attacks on critical national infrastructure. As noted by security analysts, geopolitical cyber attacks are the low-cost, high-leverage tool. From a compromised territory, an adversary can test a nation's systemic solvency, its ability to function, without firing a single shot. This is the strategic calculus. Why spend billions on a kinetic asset that can be shot down when you can achieve systemic collapse by leveraging a failed state as a disposable liability? The gray zone is where the operational playbook for your economic destruction is being written and refined. The launch on warning doctrine is not a strategy of aggression. It is a systemic protocol born from mathematical certainty. The protocol dictates that if a nation's early warning systems detect an incoming nuclear strike, it must launch its own retaliatory arsenal before the first enemy warhead makes impact. Waiting for confirmation is not an option, as a successful first strike would decapitate command and control, ensuring total annihilation. It is a cold, calculated response to a zero-sum threat. Now, introduce the asymmetric vector. Analysts at CSIS confirm that geopolitical cyber attacks are a primary tool for targeting an adversary's critical national infrastructure. The objective is no longer to physically destroy a radar dish. It is to corrupt the data it transmits. An adversary does not need $1 billion aircraft. They need a single weaponized data packet to blind the entire early warning network. This creates the fog of digital war. The command center's screens go black. The data stream is severed. The commander is now blind, facing two possibilities: a benign system failure or a deliberate cyber attack masking an imminent, decapitating first strike. The launch on warning protocol, however, has no variable for uncertainty. It is a binary trigger. The doctrine forces the commander's hand. Out of fear that waiting means extinction, the only logical action under the existing protocol is to launch. The adversary, without firing a single kinetic shot, has leveraged a systemic vulnerability to force the most powerful nation on Earth down an escalation path, where the only remaining lever is the nuclear trigger. This is the ultimate checkmate in asymmetric warfare. South Korea's $1.29 billion electronic warfare aircraft is a document confirming the mathematical certainty of kinetic obsolescence. The cost to Project Symmetric Force now exceeds the solvency of the system it is meant to defend. This is not a strength. It is a liability. The strategic adversary bypasses this liability. The vector shifts to non-kinetic attacks on critical national infrastructure, or CNI, as analysts at CSES have modeled. The true target is not military hardware, but systemic solvency. This new blueprint requires a test, a calibration shot to measure systemic latency and political response thresholds. The optimal vector is a fragile state, a geopolitical liability where attribution is impossible. The U.S. State Department has already flagged the target zone's systemic fragility, designating Bangladesh a Level 3 risk. The calibration event will occur within the next 12 months. A logistics and data blackout at the port of Chittagong, lasting 48 to 72 hours. It will be publicly attributed to infrastructure failure. It is a non-kinetic event designed to test the global financial system's response to a decapitation of a critical supply chain node.